we get upset, like, why didn't anyone teach us, prepare us for parenthood? Because they weren't supposed to. Because what we will end up doing is raising the child like they raised us, how our grandmother, and that's not what God intended. We're not supposed to raise someone the way we were raised. Or we're not supposed to say, well, I didn't have this, so I need to make sure my child has this. We're not raising ourselves through a child. And I found.
So there's a saying, and I'm not speaking of any sort of race, I'm speaking of a color. If it's white, it's not right. Okay? That part. So, white bread. If this was me calling you, when are you going to answer the phone? And then after you answer the phone, are you going to show up?
Exactly. And then it gave a parameter, amen, on how I need to love her.
Talk about that.
He says Christ loved the church.
He gave his life.
That man up. When that man walks through the door, just tell him, man, look at my man. Come in and give us your fine self. If you pushing that man and move.
This is when you know you're dealing with trauma in a light way. You get an envelope in the mailbox, you don't open it, you avoid it. Being avoidant. Okay, everyone, I would like to welcome you back to another healing episode of the Whole Story Sundays podcast. I'm your host, the Wholistic One, Gilchrist, and I have two very special guests. I have my lovely best friend here, Sharlicia Boone, but I'm going to let her do her own introduction. And then I also have Elle. Y'all know I really love Dr. Elle. Like she gives, she drops gems on a regular basis. And every time she says she's going to come on a podcast, I don't want to say I'm a little bit starstruck, but I think I am. I feel a little starstruck, Elle. You got that star quality, boo.
Thank you, Jaquel.
So I love it. So I'm gonna start by introductions. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Shar, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, and then we're gonna kind of get rolling.
All right. Well, I'm Dr. Elle Harris. I'm trying to figure out where I want to lead with this bio tonight, because we're talking about motherhood. So I'm a mom, about 13 months postpartum. You got to say that.
Child.
So for this episode tonight, I'm going to be talking about womanhood and mothering, all of those things. So I'll focus on that aspect of my life and all things that I do women in regards to women. So I have a nonprofit called Worldwide Women, and our whole purpose is to help women and girls become the leaders that they are destined to be. And so we do that through different initiatives. So we kind of look at what's happening in the world, and based on what's happening in the world, we create ideas and programs that foster what we need the solution to be at the time. So we need a solution like this. This platform that you're having, we need, because motherhood is real. It's the hoodest hood that I've ever been a part of.
The hoodest hood. I love it. And you know what, Elle? I'm going to be honest with you. Already getting me started. It's funny because it became, actually, I was on the phone with, first of all, Sharlicia, introduce yourself before I get all excited. And then I'm going to tell you where the inspiration came. Oh my God. Go ahead, Shar. Introduce yourself.
So I am Sharlicia Boone. As Shaquilla said, that we are really, really close friends. Mm-hmm. And kind of piggybacking off of Dr. Harris, I will focus on, I am a woman that has survived. I'm a woman that's resilient. And right now, in the season of life that I am now, I am already claiming that I am a future mother sooner than later. And we'll kind of talk more into that as we kind of dig into today's podcast.
Yes, and I love it. So first of all of us, I know Elle is a mental health professional. I don't know if she does it as her profession as much as she used to. But me and Sharlicia are both, what are we? License eligible. So we all have that mental health background as well. So that's one thing that we like to target on the Whole Story Sundays. Every time we have an episode, it will be mental health and spirituality as it relates to what we're going to talk about. So what inspired this episode, Dr. Harris, is that was talking to Sharlicia, and we were just kind of talking about our next steps. So, I mean, I know I'm a believer, and I believe that my grandma, my mom, everybody taught me how to be a great a great woman of God. They taught me how to be a career woman. I've seen them as wives. I've seen them as mothers, but I don't believe it's enough emphasis on how to be a mother or how to be a wife. And so the reason why I called this episode the Pour Session is because I just want women who I look up to pour into other women about the ugly truth of motherhood, the beautiful truth about motherhood, and just things that you really didn't even know until you became a mother. We're going to also do this as it relates to women I respect as wives, just because I just want more women to be aware of what they're getting into, because we know that anything worth having is worth fighting for. So that's why I decided to have you on the show, because I know you are a new mom, and I know you developed your career first, and that's something that me and Sharlicia both have in common, is that we don't have children yet because we focus the beginning of our lives on our career. So I'm inspired by that. So pretty much my first question was, what would you pour into women who desire to be a mother?
Ooh, when you said, like, when she sent it to me, I was like, whoa, that's loaded. But even with you just saying it, like, I just felt my stomach drop. So just a little bit about my story before I go into that question, because it'll all tie in. So I've been married, it'll be 10 years in March, right?
Congrats.
Thank you.
That's huge.
And so I didn't get pregnant until my 8th year of marriage, right?
Wow.
So 8 years going through life, every Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, birthday, whatever. When you gonna have a baby? Why haven't y'all had kids yet? All of that stuff, right? And I did not try to prevent having children, but I did say this prayer. I told God that I just wanted to wait until I finished my PhD before having a child. And God honored that prayer. So sometimes when you say things, you have to remember what you said, because even with saying that, I used to wonder, like, wow, is something wrong with me? Like, why haven't I gotten pregnant yet? But God answered my prayer. However, in my mind, I'm just like, something got to be wrong, because by now I should have been pregnant. But God answered my prayer. And literally, I graduated from, finished my PhD December 20th of 2020. 3 weeks later, I was pregnant. So let me go.
On.
So what's even crazier about that is 2 weeks before I found out I was pregnant, one of my friends called me. So we have this group chat called The Safe Place, me and 2 of my closest friends. And we were talking about, my friend said, God told me to tell y'all that the gates of heaven are open. And whatever you ask him for, he's going to give you. So I'm literally like 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the gym, like living my best life, because I just finished school, y'all, and I'm just feeling good, you know, all this stuff. And she's like, you know, whatever it is, just say it. And I'm like, I want a baby. Now in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, hopefully by August I'll get pregnant. Like, it gives God time to work on it, but I want a baby. And she's like, well, that's what's going to happen. And I literally got pregnant 2 weeks later.
My God, come on. So talk about a suddenly.
So with everybody else that sees the process, they'll look at it like, oh, she, you know, 8 or 9 years of marriage and they didn't have children and all of that. But that was my prayer. And I told my husband, moving forward a little bit, once we actually had the baby, I don't think our marriage could have survived having a baby so early on. I don't think I would have pursued any of my dreams having a baby so early on. I would have not finished school so early on. Like, all of those things would have stopped for me, because I know, like, now just seeing who I've become as a mother, my whole life, my whole dynamic has shifted. So getting back into what you say about pouring, the first thing I would say is to be selfish, right? Because the first thing you want to do to, you know, everybody wants to have that husband, child, great career, loving life, but nobody really knows what it takes to be a mom, right? And I think the reason why we're never taught to be moms is because we're not supposed to be taught. Like, God is supposed to guide us. And then all of the people, all of our ancestors are supposed to guide us on this journey. And so I remember when I had, a couple of weeks before I had my daughter, and I was so, when I tell you I went through the most emotions throughout my pregnancy, I had so many issues with my own upbringing. Like, I always said, if I had a child, I only wanted one. And there was so long that I didn't want to have a child because I had a horrible childhood. absolutely horrible. You know, when people say, I wish I can go back and be a child, I would never want to go back and be a child, ever.
Wow. My God.
When I think about those things, it's like, why do I want to bring a child in the world who could be exposed to some of those things and some of those people that be exposed to, right? So all of those issues that I had to work through before bringing a child into the earth. And so I had a doula, and because I was scared, you know, you hear about Black women dying while giving birth. And so I got a doula, and she took me on this journey and talked about, like, it was like, I think it was 9 or 10 different stages that you go into once you start your labor process.
Wow.
And telling me the different stages you go into and how you go in and out of consciousness, all of these things. And I'm just sitting there nervous, like, what the heck? It's all of this stuff. No one's ever told me this stuff. And so I guess she saw where I was. And so she told me to close my eyes and to breathe. And she said, what's going to happen is there's going to be a moment right before you have the baby. And you are going to imagine yourself being in this field, right? And at this field, you're going to be in the center of a circle. And around is going to be all the women ancestors from your family and your husband's family. And they're going to surround you. And what they're doing is just surrounding you and pouring you with all of the love, the knowledge you need to take care of this child. She said, and when it's time for you to bring her here, earthside, the eldest person is going to hand you your baby. And you're gonna be on that table, and I'm gonna tell you, Elle, go get your baby. And then you're gonna come back on this side. Y'all, when I tell you I broke down and cried.
Let me tell you something.
That moment when I was in the hospital and I had been pushing, I'm tired, and she's like, Elle, go get your baby. And it's like this strength came from somewhere, y'all. It came from somewhere, and my girl was here. So I think when we talk about, you know, we get upset, like, why didn't anyone teach us, prepare us for parenthood? Because they weren't supposed to. Because what we will end up doing is raising the child like they raised us, how our grandmother, and that's not what God intended. We're not supposed to raise someone the way we were raised. Or we're not supposed to say, well, I didn't have this, so I need to make sure my child has this. We're not raising ourselves through a child. And I find myself, like, whenever I see myself going down that road of, oops, you know, I'm trying to give her this because I didn't have it. Or I'm trying to expose her to this because nobody exposed me to that. I'm not going to do this because my mama did that. That's not what we're doing. You have to raise individuals for who they are and no one else. You cannot bring your trauma into that. So when I say be selfish and say, you know what, God, which I hope everyone believes in, but I know some people don't, but whoever you believe in, you know what? When it is my time to be able to properly pour into a child and be able to properly do it with a partner without any of my own shit, without any of my own drama, with any of their drama and their trauma being poured into this child, then at that moment, let me be ready to have a child.
My God.
Because if not, doing it for the show, right? It looks fun to have a family and to do all those things, but when I tell you, when you actually have that person here and they watch and soak up every single thing that you do not want to be facing your trauma while trying to raise someone that you thought that was going to make you happy when they got here. Because they cannot make you happy. They cannot. They give you the greatest joy, which my daughter is, but she does not make me happy. She can't. That's too much pressure to put on anyone. And so
my God.
I feel like that would be my first step. You have to be able to say, you know what? When it's your time, I want to do this so that I have everything that I'm prepared to do to bring this child in this world. Because if not, it could lead to so much. It could lead to postpartum depression. It could lead to separation from the partner or divorce from your spouse. You know, all of these, or it could lead to resentment. I didn't get to finish my training. I didn't get to finish school. I didn't get to do this on my job because I have to make sure I'm available for my child. All of those things. And until you are willing to say, I may have to make an adjustment in my life for a while to make sure this child has everything they need. Because when you are given the gift to be a parent, whether you birth them yourselves or you adopt or you're a foster or whatever it is, that is a huge responsibility. And it's one of the greatest blessings in the world to be able to steward someone that God has gifted with, right? Because you have to prepare them for their own purpose, right? So you have to
My
give them
God.
until you are ready to be able to say, I can compartmentalize my own stuff to take care of them. Then I say, don't even do it.
My God.
Tag is deep
Elle,
pictures, baby. It's deeper.
I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting to feel like I'm ready to throw my shoe already. The whole ancestors thing, that was so deep on so many levels. And I literally picture each generation coming together to have you become the mother that you are to be better. You see what I'm saying? And not to take anything from them, because I feel that they did all that they could, the best that they could. But I'm gonna be honest, like I was born to a teen mom. So imagine having a parent who's 16 years old raising you as they have to go through their depression. They have to go through their whatever they're going through. The fact that me and my mom finished school, our bachelor's degree, a year apart. Because a lot of those things was put off due to the fact that she had to make so many sacrifices. And I feel that it's the same with marriage as well. I know we're not talking about that, but I have made that decision as well, that until I'm whole, and I know we'll never be whole, but at least with what you said, I can compartmentalize. I'm gonna keep that at bay, because it's so many things I need to work through right now.
Yeah.
I love it. You have something to say, Sean?
It's easy to get married, but it's not easy staying married. That's the difference. It's hard to stay married. It's easy to get married, but staying married is hard business.
By God. And that's probably the same as being a parent. We're going through our baby fever. You get the baby bump, you have the baby shower, and then that baby coming, you up at 3:00 in the morning, plus dealing with your career, trying to satisfy your partner. It's not that easy. But I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you go, because I was going in, child.
No, I was just in here like just kind of soaking everything in. I'm like, Elle must be in my note section of my phone, because some of the things you said, like you're kind of already touching on just some of the points that I've, kind of thought about. And as Shaquille said, with us having a conversation, I guess like a couple weeks ago,
2 or 3 weeks ago.
I don't know. I've been on this journey. I would say back in 2020, the summertime. And that's when I've been married for 5 years. And so it's like something just kind of clicked. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be a mom. And for me, I've always been career driven. I'm like, got to break generational curses, got to get this education. When you know better, you got to do better. Like, that's how I've always been. So I don't know anything different than, working 2 jobs, making ends meet, going after your dreams. That's all I literally know. And so the summertime, 2020 pandemic, I'm like, I'm ready. And then now we have the fall. Now we have the winter. Now we in 2021. And, little things would just come up that I didn't realize in the moment. It literally clicked for me maybe like a month ago. You weren't as ready as you thought you were. And thank God that my husband and I did not embark on the journey of parenthood. Because like you said, Elle, it could look a little bit different. Because I didn't realize, there were things like outside from us being in a whole pandemic, but thinking about, things that might seem like the norm or whatever from childhood, it was a trigger for me because, the reality is generations before us, they parented differently.
My God.
And there's no resentment or animosity, because I choose to believe they did the best they could with what they had. But when I know better, I do better. So for example, you're hearing things like spare the rod, spoil the child. That may work for your child. But the Boone household, we're going to have a little bit of gentle parenting in there too. That's not going to be the answer for everything.
Right. Come on.
So it was things like that I had to work through, and kind of, I guess, like deciphering between but you grew up believing spare the rod, spoil the child. So it's like you kind of going against what you've always known. So again, maybe you're not ready to be a parent. Or like when you had talked about, every Thanksgiving, every year. So we ain't going to get that man a baby. That's a trigger for me. And depending on what day it is, it don't matter if it's auntie, cousin, grandma, them, I might have to bless you. with some words, and and that's not to be like a disrespectful thing, but to let you know that we have to get to a point where I know there may not be ill intent behind it, but now in the world that we live in, infertility is real. Miscarriage is real. Endometriosis, PCOS, and it was times like that I realized this is a trigger for you, and you got to dig deeper into this. And I realized, because I have friends, I have people that I know that struggle with those, medical illnesses that we don't talk about in the Black community.
Come on.
Me going through the process, okay, what if my husband and I do embark on this journey and we're able to get pregnant right away? In the back of my mind, I'm thinking about that friend that's been trying for 5 years.
Oh, Jesus.
The one that's dropped the whole house and money on IVF treatments. How do I invite them to the baby shower? How do I share, one of the happiest moments of my life and hear cousin over here asking me, when you gonna get that man a baby? Or, the favorite line is, you sure was packing on pounds, you pregnant? And so I think conversations like this need to be had, because it's a problem. It's just a problem, and it's something that I found myself as I get closer and closer to the journey. Well, I guess stepping into parenthood is something that I find that I'm becoming more passionate about, because, like I said, I see the hurt from people around me. I see, we don't get the best care because how we look in the assumptions. Not even talking about nursing or, I'm gonna get a doula. What you need that for? You gotta cry?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna do both.
Exactly. My goodness.
Trying to, go through your pregnancy with a friend who's waiting, it's very hard. It's very hard. It's hard to be excited. It caused a lot of strain on our relationship. And I talked to her after I had the baby about just how I felt and how I felt like I couldn't come to her and say certain things, and it made me pull away, because I know how it felt